Okay, calm down. You got rivers, man. You got rivers, man. Okay, calm down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We have obviously a great show for you today, but this one is really jam-packed. We got people talking about Microsoft. We got people talking about Trump's plan in Gaza, and we got people talking about music and art and the UN and the president of Colombia, if you can believe it. So before we bring on our guests, please do give this a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up. That's a way to like the show. It's a free way to support the show and independent media. If you haven't already subscribed, please do subscribe by pressing the subscribe and then the bell. That way you never miss any streams. You never miss any breaking news streams that we may do, additional streams, but also you just get a reminder every Tuesday night when we stream. Also, please do support the show, Patreon, patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. It's a great way to support the show. If you can support it at $1 a month, that's $12 a year. You get to sleep well. Well, I don't know. It's very hard to sleep well, but relatively well, I guess. I don't know. No one's sleeping well. You get to pat yourself on the back for helping make the show happen, because not to sound corny or like NPR, but we really couldn't do the show without your support. And if you can support it at the $5 a month level, then you get literally hundreds of extended interviews and bonus interviews and bonus content. So we are very excited to offer that to you. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Also, please do make sure that you are doing everything you can to stop the genocide in Gaza. Attend protests, write to your people, support your friends who are out there doing things. If you are a legal citizen, go to protests that other people find it much more challenging, legally speaking, to do. Let's all play our role, because we are living in crazy times. That's kind of an understatement. We are living in apocalyptic times, and people will turn back, and your grandkids will look back and say, what were you doing during this time? And you're going to want to give them a good answer on that. And speaking of good answers on what you were doing, we have two guests. Well, all the guests that we're having on tonight are going to be are people who will be able to give a good answer to this. So our final segment on the show, our third guest, is going to be none other than Roger Waters of Pink Floyd. Before that, though, we'll be talking to Mouin Rabbani and Craig Mokhiber about Trump's plan for Gaza. But our first segment tonight is really an exciting segment, and it's with two former workers from Microsoft, Vaniya Agrawal and Hossam Nasr. They helped pressure the company to bar the Israeli military from using Microsoft services to spy on millions of Palestinian civilian phone calls made each day in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, and stored in Microsoft's vast Azure cloud computing platform. But there's more work to be done, as we will get into shortly. So welcome, Vaniya and Hossam. Thank you, guys. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, so please, before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty of how you guys raised hell and achieved quite a bit, tell us the latest news when it comes to Microsoft and what they just announced.
I'll let Hossam take this one.
Okay, yeah. So Microsoft just announced that they are withdrawing some of the cloud and AI services that they were providing to the Israeli military unit, Unit 8200, which is basically Israel's NSA. And by doing so, they became the first U.S. company since the genocide began to withdraw any of the technology that they're providing to the Israeli military. So that is a pretty significant and unprecedented move to see this happen and kind of contribute to this isolation that is becoming global now of the Israeli military. And for that to come home and to come to the tech industry as well, that is fast forwarding and accelerating the genocide in an unprecedented way. We are witnessing the world's first AI-assisted genocide in the world. So for that to happen from Microsoft as well, like one of the most valuable companies, one of the most powerful companies in the world, is a pretty significant win. But it's also important to also be sober about what it's not. And it's not the sort of complete break with the Israeli military that we had been campaigning for for almost 2 years. It's only a partial win because they're only stopping some of the services to only one military unit, whereas the vast majority of their contract with the Israeli military remains intact. And we know from reporting that Microsoft has a footprint in all the major military infrastructure in Israel. So there's still plenty of work to be done.
Yes, amen to that. How did both of you, by the way, I'm just curious how both of you got involved in the work that you did at Microsoft, but also how you became people who would risk your jobs at Microsoft for the cause of Gaza.
Vanya, I'll let you go first, and then I can.
Yeah, I can start with that. So I joined Microsoft just 2 weeks before October 7th. And before I joined Microsoft, I really bought into, Microsoft's whole PR about being the least evil tech company. I was previously at Amazon, which I didn't feel great about. And when I left Amazon, I was like, I don't want to go to another tech company, but if I have to, Microsoft seems like the best choice and the least evil choice because they root themselves in empowering people and entities all around the world. They do a lot of nonprofit work, and they continue this idea that they are creating tech for good and tech for the benefit of humanity. But very quickly after October 7th, I started to learn more and more and more about how Microsoft is deeply, deeply complicit in originally Israeli occupation and apartheid, but now Israeli genocide of the Palestinian people. And over the course of a year, as we witnessed the live stream genocide on all of our phones, I just grew to the point where I could not bear staying at Microsoft any longer. I felt like I could not be complicit, even if I wasn't directly contributing to the software that is being put in the hands of the Israeli military, or helping in the surveillance of Palestinians, or the targeting of children, of journalists, of doctors. Even if I'm not the one writing that code, I'm still contributing to a company and helping a company make money to power this genocide and to power these atrocities. And I grew to the point where it was an obvious choice for me that I needed to leave. But I also knew that being a Microsoft employee, I had a lot of privilege. I had a lot of power. I'm also a US citizen. In the current political climate, it's hard for people to speak up who have visas on the line, who have families that they're taking care of. And I felt a responsibility to use my privilege and use my power to speak up and really try to bring awareness to Microsoft's complicity in the genocide and their ties to the Israeli military. And I got in touch with the No Azure for Apartheid campaign and spoke with Hossam, and we really talked through how, as Microsoft employees, we can take ownership and advantage of our position to speak out, especially if we are willing to put our job on the line, our career on the line, our livelihoods on the line. And that brought me to April 4th, which was when Microsoft was celebrating their 50th anniversary. And during that event, we decided that, Microsoft cannot continue business as usual. They cannot celebrate 50 years of their continuation while they are continuing to power mass crimes against humanity. And so we organized disruption at their keynote event, and I ended up disrupting the 3 CEOs of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, Bill Gates, and Steve Ballmer. And since then, I've just been continuing to work with the No Azure for Apartheid campaign to continue pressuring Microsoft executives and demand that they disclose all their ties to the Israeli military, divest from the Israeli military, call for a permanent ceasefire, and protect their employees while they do it.
Great. And what about you, Hossam? And you're muted.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Egypt. I came here for college, and Microsoft was my first job out of college, right? So I think from the very beginning, even especially during college, I was still doing some Palestine organizing in college, but I was always taught and I always internalized that I thought there was a balance between, on the one hand, using whatever voice and whatever privilege I had in this moment to speak up about Palestine, and still recognizing that simply being in this country, simply working for a company like Microsoft is a big privilege that I have to use. But at the same time, kind of trying to balance that with this idea of, just laying low until you get more privilege, until you can have more power, you can have more of a voice, and that sort of thing. The genocide started October 7th. The first thing I saw from the company was an email that says, "We stand with Israel," a big banner on the company website with an Israeli flag, encouraging employees to donate to Israel. Not a word of mention about Palestinians, about Gaza, anything like that. And I think at that point, especially, not just at Microsoft, but just throughout the country, witnessing the genocide and witnessing the level of gaslighting and the amount of depravity, the length people would go to justify the mass murder that we were witnessing, I was like, that equation goes out the window for me. Like, there is no longer any, I can no longer justify having like a way to ambiguate my responsibility, and I just need to use my voice and my privilege to its fullest extent. And that included also within the company. So I started working, doing as much as I can inside the company, signing petitions. We launched like a petition in early November, simply asking the company to call for a ceasefire. And that went nowhere. There was a lot of silencing and repression within the company. I was targeted by HR investigations and sanctions, and I even had my bonus, my stock award, my salary increase were all stripped of me. But I was like, that is all such a cheap price to pay, especially compared to like realizing that my labor was going to enable this genocide, right? And that's something that I learned throughout the course of the organizing that I was doing. So I became involved with a group of employees who we started organizing together. We started doing our research. We discovered the extent of Microsoft ties. We launched the No Azure for Apartheid campaign in May of last year. And then I knew that at some point I probably would get fired for my organizing. If anything, I thought that if we're not challenging them enough to the point that they feel compelled to fire one of us, we're not doing our job enough. We're not challenging them enough. I always thought that was a possibility, and I always knew that was like a cost that I'm more than happy to pay. I didn't expect it to happen the way it did, which was simply for organizing a vigil on Microsoft campus to honor the countless lives that have been lost after the 1 year mark of the genocide. So almost a year ago.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Finish. I thought you. Keep going.
That's it. I was just fired like almost a year ago. We organized the vigil. I was fired, and then since then I've just continued organizing with the campaign.
So I'm going to ask each of you more about this. Your organizing, the risks you've taken, the response that you've gotten. But before that, let's just back up a little bit, because you just mentioned, Hossam, that you looked into the ties between Microsoft and Israel. And I think a lot of people talk about this and how tech is involved in Israel, but we don't really understand how it works. So can you break down how this works for people, especially for people who are not in the tech industry? And then also talk about what No Azure for Apartheid is.
Absolutely. So Microsoft, along with Google and Amazon, so they're three biggest cloud providers in the world. What they do is they provide cloud services, so that includes storage, computing services, AI services to the Israeli military. That enables the Israeli military to store the massive amounts of surveillance data that they collect on Palestinians. That includes the phone calls that we've seen revealed recently, but it also includes text messages, locations, information, all kinds of data that they are able to collect through espionage, through surveillance about Palestinian people. So one thing is simply just storage. And one of the problems the Israeli military had after October 7 is they started relying even more on that surveillance data, and they simply do not have enough servers in Israel to store all of that. So they had to outsource that scale to companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Only they can have the kind of scale that the Israeli military needs. So that's one thing. Second is, for them to be able to sift through that massive amounts of data, they automate pretty much everything. So transcribing, translation, so like kind of aggregating that information. Again, all of that is also done using AI services that are provided by Microsoft and other companies, as well as then taking that data, and the most dangerous part, or the craziest part, is then feeding that data into AI systems that decide who is a terrorist and who is not, according to the Israeli military, who they deem as a target. They track people until they are home and send a signal to the Israeli military to strike them when they are home with their families, specifically. They label locations as bombing targets. So there is systems like, for example, the Gospel is this AI system that was revealed 2 years ago that marks different locations in Gaza as sites for bombing, including explicitly civilian targets, or what they call power targets, schools, hospitals, etc., whose function is to, according to the Israeli military, put civilian pressure on the Hamas government. There is Lavender, which marks individuals as terrorists, and again as people of interest, and there's Where's Daddy, that again tracks people in physical space and waits until they're home to send a signal to bomb them. So that entire ecosystem has enabled the Israeli military to vastly accelerate its genocide in levels never before seen. So before, the amount of time it would take to, let's say if it takes 1 week to authorize one airstrike, they can now authorize 20 airstrikes in the same amount of time. So if not more. So the scale of the destruction, the death that we see in Gaza is accelerated through the provision of these technologies. And Microsoft specifically is perhaps the most complicit tech company, because they are embedded in every major technological infrastructure in the Israeli military. They collaborate with not just Unit 8200, but with Air Force units, with ground units, naval units. They send their engineers to embed themselves in the military units and behave as if they were soldiers. They provide consulting services to the Israeli prison services, and they have a lot of ties with the Israeli government as well that goes beyond the military. So at this point, what we have been trying to sound the alarm about is, given how essential these companies are to this genocide, these companies, we should treat them as weapons manufacturers, and they are effectively producing digital weapons to the Israeli military that enable them to fund this genocide, that are as essential as the bombs and the bullets and the planes, right? So we've launched No Azure for Apartheid in May of last year, which is we are a worker-led campaign of Microsoft workers who are demanding an end to Microsoft's relationship with the Israeli military and end to the complicity in the apartheid and genocide. We have 4 main demands. Number 1 is IOF off Azure, so ending all of the sales of all of the Azure services, Azure being Microsoft's cloud, to the Israeli military. 2 is calling for a ceasefire and end to the genocide. 3 is ending the discrimination. 2 is disclosing all the ties between the military, Microsoft and the military, because a lot of the stuff is hidden. 3 is calling for a ceasefire. And lastly is ending the discrimination against Arab, Muslim, and pro-Palestinian employees of the company.
And what is this unit 8200?
So Unit 8200 is, it functions like Israel's NSA. Basically, it's the Israeli military spy unit. They're the ones who are responsible for collecting the massive amounts of surveillance data about Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank. They have, it was recently revealed, they are tracking pretty much every phone call that is made by a Palestinian. And they're using this data, storing it on Microsoft servers, then using it to target people in Gaza, as well as to even retroactively justify the murder of Palestinians in the West Bank. It's also used to enforce the apartheid regime, decide who to target or surveil, and some of the bar for flagging a person has been very, very low. In some cases, even mistranslations of Arabic words is enough to get people flagged.
So let's take a look at some of the protests that you guys have engaged in. The first one that we have is you, Hossam. This is from March. This is after you had been fired. I'll have to, maybe you can read the, it's a little hard to hear it. So you can say what's happening out loud, or I can say, but it's protesters who are disrupting Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, Stephen Ballmer, the billionaire and former CEO, at the 50-year anniversary event at the Seattle Town Hall. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so this is you, right? And I'll read what you're saying unless you want to, but it's probably, sure. Do you have a preference?
No, you can go for it.
Okay. How many children have to be killed before you stop selling technology to the Israeli military? You claim to care about your workers, but you fired me for organizing a vigil for the Palestinians who were killed in Gaza. Your technology is fueling the mass murder of my people. 700 people in the last 4 days alone. It is Ramadan, and people are being killed in Palestine with our technology. How dare you talk about philanthropy when you are fueling the mass murder of our people? How dare you? How dare you talk about philanthropy when you are fueling the mass murder of my people? Microsoft is fueling a genocide. You are a war criminal. You have blood on your hands. No tech for apartheid. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. And you are then escorted out. Okay. So what happened when you did that?
Yeah, so this was probably the first event where we had, as a campaign, started to think more about actively confronting Microsoft executives wherever they are. So what was happening there was it was a Geek Wire hosted event celebrating Microsoft's 50th anniversary. It was held at the Seattle Town Hall, and one of the speakers there was Brad Smith. Brad Smith is the president of Microsoft. He's the head of its legal department, and he is one of the people who oversees Microsoft's global relations. He has his name plastered next to Microsoft's human rights statement. He again constantly brags about how Microsoft is upholding global human rights and how Microsoft is abiding by the Geneva Convention and all of that. His whole thing is he's trying to create what he calls like the digital Geneva Convention. Like that's his brand. So we attended this event, and I felt compelled. Like there was a moment when he was kind of bragging about how Microsoft's impact through philanthropy and that sort of thing, and that felt like an opportune moment to really call out the double standard and the hypocrisy when these executives again claim to care about human rights, claim to care about philanthropy. Meanwhile, they are funding the genocide. And it was what I mentioned there also about you claim to care about your workers. He started his talk again talking about how we would not have been able to get through 50 years and accomplish all these things if it wasn't for our workers, if it wasn't for the employees and all of this. And I'm like, you literally fired me simply because I organized a vigil for Palestinian human rights. So it was important for us to kind of begin confronting these executives, and that has continued to be the case. Right after it was the internal kind of 50th anniversary celebration where Vaniya disrupted the CEOs, and since then I think that's been
spoiler alert.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, their next clip is featuring Vaniya because we believe in equal airtime. So set up this next clip, Vaniya, and this clip is from a couple of days. So the clip we just saw with you, Hossam, was from March 20th, the end of March. Then we're going to see a clip that's from early April. So tell us what we're about to see, Vaniya.
Yeah, so on April 4th, Microsoft was celebrating its 50th year anniversary of being a company. And for the first time, I think in 14 years, they brought all three current and former Microsoft CEOs to come on stage for a panel. And we organized around this keynote event, and I was inside the event and ended up disrupting the panel with all three CEOs there.
And at this point, were you an employee of Microsoft?
Yes, so I was an employee of Microsoft. Just around this time, as soon as I as soon as I disrupted, I also sent out a mass email, basically resigning from my role and saying that I refuse to be complicit, and calling out Microsoft for its complicity in the Israeli genocide, and calling out the executives for their role in powering everything. I was supposed to be resigning at the end of the next week, but Microsoft ended up terminating me early as a part of this protest.
Nice. Congrats.
Thanks.
Badge of honor. Okay, so let's take a look.
Well, I think
You're all hypocrites. I'm a Microsoft worker, and I do not consent to 50,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered with Microsoft technology. How dare you? Shame on all of you for celebrating on their blood. High five with Israel. No action for apartheid.
What do they say to you at the end?
all right.
I don't exactly know. They said boo for sure.
Right. Yeah, that's so embarrassing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, these people, I hope they have that on their consciences. I mean, who knows? They may not, because they may not have consciences. But okay, so there's that. So I remember that got a lot of coverage when it happened. We also have another disruption, right? This was Sarah Bird, Chief Product Officer of Responsible AI, ironically named of Responsible AI. Let's take a look at this.
The Israeli military! How dare you talk? Free, not resisting. Not resisting.
Hey, I'll be right outside waiting for you.
So this is kind of a mashup, right, of a bunch of people protesting various Microsoft events.
Sarah Bird, you are whitewashing the crimes of Microsoft in Palestine. How dare you talk about responsible AI when Microsoft is fueling the genocide in Palestine? 14,000 children will die in 2 days if you do not stop selling technology to the Israeli military. How dare you talk about responsible AI when Microsoft is fueling the genocide in Palestine?
This coast I best, we will not stop, we will not rest. So that's you guys, right? The two of you?
Yeah, that's both of us.
I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting.
He's not resisting.
You're going to get a picture. You cooperate with me, and what's so different?
So what was happening there? When you said something on my phone and I'm not resisting?
Yeah, so I was being grabbed pretty violently outside of the hall after the disruption, and I think I was still holding my phone because I was filming the whole time, and I think at some point, like, he was kind of like trying to put my arms behind me or something. It appeared like he was about to arrest me, and I was still holding my phone, so I was just trying to tell him, like, I'm not trying to resist, I'm just trying to get
right.
stop grabbing my phone, basically. And then they started gaslighting me afterwards and saying, like, oh, what phone? What are you talking about? I was never grabbing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
On what pretense?
You're being.
On what do you pretense am I
Okay, you
being
can let
detained?
me answer then?
Yes.
Trespassing.
Once you get released on the sidewalk, if you re-enter this building, you will be arrested for trespassing. Do you understand that?
Not just trespass, it will be
Burglary.
I
Because
want to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer, and I do not consent to any searches. My private property?
you're free to go.
You're the dumbass doing the work of the state, supporting genocide.
later. Hey, I'll be right outside waiting for you.
Ugh. Yeah. So I guess those were security guards, not cops. Is that what they were like? This only works on cops?
Yeah, they were private security, I think. Yeah.
Great. What was it that you were saying that, what are they saying only works on cops? Just curious. Like accountability or something? Not that it does, but.
I think they were referencing that I was saying, like, I want to remain silent. I
Oh,
want to speak to a
right,
lawyer,
yeah.
like all of that. Yeah.
Okay, now there's some other really cool things that happened that I just want to highlight. And part of the reason I'm showing this stuff is because I think it's important for people to see the type of organizing that happens, because precisely because this has been partially successful, and we're going to get to how it was successful and what needs to further be done. So let's see. This is a cool one where you guys had a protest. Which one is this one? Sorry. Outside of the houses of Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and President Brad Smith, demanding an end to their complicity in genocide and apartheid. And let's take a look at this, because this was a pretty creative thing that you guys did.
Today with Microsoft workers, former workers, and community members outside of the house of Satya Nadella, the Microsoft CEO, where we are protesting his complicity in the genocide and apartheid of Palestinians.
So you guys are on boats here. It's like a mini flotilla.
Right now, former worker Vaniya is given a speech in front of his house.
We take an oath upon ourselves for the days, weeks, months, years, and decades to come to remember their lives, honor their memories, and fight for a world where our mothers would have still been living with us in dignity and freedom.
Are stopping outside of the house of Brad Smith, who's the president of Microsoft.
Okay, so fun. It's kind of fun to do a protest. That's fun. Although I would have probably lost my balance. It wouldn't have been fun for me because I'm not very good at that. But as long as you're competent voters. And then we actually have a mashup I want to show that shows your activism, the activism of others, and then also kind of the crackdown that you guys face. And Brad,
I'm sorry, Katie.
Yeah,
if that is that may have been the one that had no link that I mentioned.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, that's fine. Yes. All right, that's fine. Well, luckily we have something else. This is one of my faves. Here is Microsoft President Brad Smith recapping some of the recent actions that you guys did at No Azure for Apartheid. And then you guys do a little like pop-up video. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but you kind of correct the record. So let's take a look at this.
Azure for Apartheid, they figured out how to get in. 7 folks storm a building, occupy an office. The building was designed with a certain level of security that has stood the test of time for 23 years until today.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
People can go protest in public spaces.
They have barricaded the entire bridge, which is public property. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 security people. They also sent the drones.
Or in a kayak outside my house. They can send petitions.
To deliver them a petition that over 2,000 Microsoft workers have signed.
Anybody in this company can send me, they can send to Satya, they can send to others an email. And we actually read those emails.
Microsoft has banned the words Palestine, Gaza, and genocide in its internal email servers.
So they'll read the emails, but they may not let you use certain words in your emails. Is that right?
Exactly.
They'll read your emails and they'll arrest you if you organize a vigil, a nonviolent vigil, because that they really believe in free speech. Well, it was cool that he highlighted all of your work, and that was kind of a culmination, right? Of you want to talk about this campaign that you guys launched?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. I think that last highlight video was kind of a culmination of events that happened over the course of 2 weeks, just this last month. As we kind of witnessed in a lot of these videos, this has been an escalation story in terms of Microsoft workers speaking out and trying to confront these executives and get them to acknowledge us and answer our demands. For years, even when Hossam was still an employee, he was speaking out in internal channels, demanding that executives answer questions related to Palestine in AMAs, trying to get answers from leadership, organizing a vigil to raise awareness and honor martyrs, and getting fired, getting our emails censored. They've just recently shut down the internal social media so that employees no longer have a direct channel to message the senior leadership. And we started out by trying to use these proper channels, not getting any movement, not getting any acknowledgement, being silenced, being ignored, being retaliated against. We took it to their talks, where you saw Hossam disrupt in March at one of Brad Smith's talks. Then we took it to their conferences, their Build conference, which was one of their biggest conferences every year, where thousands of people come from across the globe to hear them talk about responsible AI. And then we took it to their 50th anniversary, and still, like, even when I was terminated, and Ibtihal, the other worker who protested with me when she was terminated, they didn't acknowledge our protest. They didn't acknowledge what we called them out on, and they didn't even respond to any of this. And the accusations. All of these articles and reports that have been dropping over the past 2 years as well, there has been no acknowledgement from Microsoft or its executives. And so we took it to their homes. We got on kayaks, we got on paddleboards, and we made it clear to them that, you know, they will not have peace. They will not know peace until they answer us. And so this campaign has really just been escalating the pressure and building the pressure on Microsoft, on the executives, taking it directly to them wherever they are, and really living up to that disclose, divest, we will not stop, we will not rest until we get answers from them.
Wow. And so what did they actually do? I mean, what did you achieve? And what is it that you want them to do that they still haven't done? So in other words, like, what needs to happen next?
So if you don't mind, I'll speak on this first, and then I'll let Hossam add to it. So Microsoft put out a statement in response supposedly to the Guardian's article. The Guardian released a report just a month ago, calling out Unit 8200's surveillance of Palestinian phone calls, and how all of that terabytes and terabytes of data was being stored on Microsoft Azure. Microsoft responded by opening a second investigation. For the record, this is the second investigation that they've opened into looking into their contracts with the Israeli military. The first was opened after some of our actions and promptly closed with no finding of wrongdoing. But yeah, they recently, last week, released a statement saying, okay, we did this investigation. Some of these claims that were made in this article were true, and we have withdrawn services from Unit 8200, but only some services. So this includes storage services and some AI services, but they have not cut the contract with Unit 8200. And furthermore, they have not cut the contracts with other units within Microsoft. I think it is important to call out, though, that Microsoft would never have made this decision to cut these services to Israeli Unit 8200 without the direct and sustained pressure applied by Microsoft workers and community members for nearly 2 years. And this news of their involvement in Israeli apartheid and occupation and genocide isn't news to them. They've had this relationship for more than 30 years. And the current CEO has even met with the head of Unit 8200 to make this deal nearly 4 years ago. So they cannot claim ignorance. They cannot claim that they didn't know about this. And it's no coincidence that when we sent out a worker petition to executives back in May, that is when they released their blog post or statement about the first investigation. It's no coincidence that Brad Smith held a press conference in his office addressing Microsoft's complicity publicly just after we staged a sit-in in that same office. And it's no coincidence that weeks after our liberated zone encampments and the sit-in at Microsoft Global Headquarters, that this is the moment where CEOs have finally decided to take some action. And while this step is unprecedented, making Microsoft, again, the first major tech company to withdraw services from the Israeli military since the start of the genocide, this is simply not enough. We know that big tech is deeply complicit in the economy of occupation and genocide. But this action that they've taken is proof that targeted direct action can and does move seemingly immovable mountains. But we also it's critical to also realize that Microsoft still stays committed to maintaining their relationship with the Israeli Ministry of Defense, and this decision only affects a very small subset of a specific division, and Microsoft continues to provide services to other units. To Unit 8200 continues to treat the Israeli military as one of its top 500 customers, giving it specialized support and consulting. They still operate on illegal Israeli colonial settlements in occupied Palestinian West Bank. But we also know that their investigation is supposedly still ongoing. So now is the time to continue applying pressure. They've shown us their hand. They've shown us what our power can do. And the worst thing we can do right now is ease off the gas and thank them for this action. Ultimately, I think we all hope that this is the first domino to fall in the big tech divesting from genocide. Our campaign calls for full divestment from the Israeli military. And while this action falls short of that, it still sets a precedent for the industry. And the Guardian stated in their article that Israel has already moved its data to AWS. So now is the time to ensure that these tech giants outside of Microsoft, including Amazon, including Google, that they all move in lockstep and deny services to powering genocide just across the board.
And what comes next for you guys? I mean, it's very inspiring, but what's next? Or for you guys, but also for the greater movement?
Yeah, I think like Vaniya said, this only vindicates sort of the organizing that we're doing. This only is kind of it's vindication for all the workers and community members and people of the public who have put their employment on the line, put their livelihood on the line, put their bodies on the line in some cases, got arrested, sort of fighting this fight. This is only kind of vindication for those efforts and kind of motivation to keep going. It's only motivation to keep the organizing. So we're not going anywhere. I think our organizing continues, our actions continue, our protests at people on campus, outside of campus, announced and unannounced, in their homes, in their offices. Will continue. I think for us, it's really important to make sure, like Vaniya said, that this is only the first domino, and that this is a really important crack in the dam, and hopefully a flood will follow. And that when we say, that we will not stop until all of our demands are met, that we really mean that. And I hope that message is very clear to Microsoft executives and to the workers who have 2,100 workers have signed our petition, not for a partial a cutting of some services, but for a complete cutting of the ties with the Israeli military. And that's what we will keep fighting for. And as far as thinking about the movement more broadly, I really do hope that this is, again, proof and motivation that even in the tech industry that has slid so far into authoritarianism, that we see the tech executives in it kind of completely surrendering to Trump, gifting Trump, like Tim Cook recently gifted Trump this pure gold placard just to have him ease off the tariffs a little bit. We recently saw Google have a $45 million contract with the Israeli government to parrot Israeli propaganda. Uber just invested in Israeli drone technology. Palantir is partnering with the government to accelerate deportations. It's very easy to feel demoralized in that context, and it's very easy to feel like we have no agency and we have no power. But it's really important for us and to use this example to prove that even in this context, to every worker, every student, every person of conscience, you are not defeated. You are not helpless. You have agency and you have power. And when we get together as workers, when we organize, and when we are relentless in our demands, we can still claw back a sense of morality in this world. And yeah, the tech executives of Microsoft did not do this because they suddenly realized that they were committing war crimes, or that they have their conscience has been awoken. It's because of the sustained pressure, and we hope that this is, again, motivation for anybody who's fighting the good fight to keep going, knowing that ultimately we will win.
Yeah. And is there anything? Yeah, they didn't just develop a conscience, right? Is there anything else that you guys want to say about the relationship more generally between tech and Israel, either now or like historically speaking?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned, I do believe that if we look at the tech industry broadly, it is one of the in my opinion, I mean, this is starting to get more attention now, but it is often one of the most underlooked aspects of this general American complicity in the genocide and in this general sort of trend towards fascism, authoritarianism, that sort of thing. In addition to all the ways that Microsoft is complicit that we talked about, there is the $1.2 billion contract between Google, Amazon, and the Israeli government. It's called Project Nimbus. This contract is now what Unit 8200 is using to move a lot of the thousands of terabytes of data that they were storing on Microsoft servers to Amazon servers. Unfortunately, like the tech industry is very interconnected in that way, and they are a lot of tech executives are very complicit. I just saw recently the CEO of Vercel take a selfie with Netanyahu, a man who is wanted by the ICC for war crimes and crimes against humanity. So the message I want people to get at is, in this day and age, when we see the world's first AI-assisted genocide, when the Israeli military leaders themselves describe cloud as a weapon in its own right, and they brag about the very high operational effectiveness, the very significant operational effectiveness in Gaza, brought by the partnership with third-party cloud. In that day and age, it's important for us to understand that tech companies are effectively weapons manufacturers. They are effectively selling weapons to the Israeli military, to the US government, and that we must treat them as such. So when we are talking about an arms embargo against Israel, we should also be talking a digital arms embargo to end the sale of cloud and AI to the Israeli government.
And any thoughts and words on what's happening with TikTok from either of you?
Vanya, do you want to take that one?
I don't use TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily from your experience, but just the latest developments in what is happening to TikTok. It's no longer Chinese, even though it's not actually, the Chinese government has no relationship to it. People seem very upset about the content on TikTok because it shows like the truth about Palestine.
Yeah, I think I would just like to kind of extend this analogy of, or just this idea of tech weapons being used in genocide, just to the broader context of global systems of militarism, colonial violence. These companies don't just sell tools, they're selling the capacity to control, to surveil, to dominate at scale, no matter where it is around the world. Cloud infrastructure, as we've said, has become the technological backbone of occupation and genocide. Machine learning models are being used as essentially policing engines when it comes to algorithms in social media, to repress, to silence, and to also surveil people. And these systems, even surveillance systems for biometrics, have become border enforcement tools, or tools that ICE is using in detention centers. It's whether it's Israel's apartheid regime or US military, ICE detention systems, like tech enables all of these militarized systems. And it's Palestine today, but it's all of us tomorrow. This technology is and will be and already is being used against all of us.
Wow. Any ways in particular we should be on the lookout for?
I think social media is definitely a big one. I think surveillance when it comes to, I mean, there's so much happening with iPhones. I mean, Apple has its own complicity with Congo and where they're sourcing materials for iPhones, but also the way that we can be surveilled and targeted through our phones is quite alarming. But it's everywhere. I think tech has embedded itself in every facet of our lives, and we all need to take a close look at how we are using tech every day. to really protect ourselves.
All right. Well, I'm going to have you guys on for another segment where you can really advise us, because we need tips from the experts like you. Hossam and Vanya, thank you so much for joining, and really do come back. We can do like a seminar or a how-to or a behind the tech curtain, whatever the curtain would be. Yeah.
We'd be honored to come back. Thank you so much for having us.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. It's an honor to be here.
Thanks. All right. Well, have great nights and see you soon. Bye, guys. All right. That was a great segment. And we have 2 more segments. Can you believe it? Now, before we do that, though, how are we on likes? Let me just check the likes. Let me see how we're doing on likes. Oh yeah, we got good. We're on good number of likes. Keep the likes coming, guys. That's wow. You guys are better like ratio than we get at on Useful Idiots Monday morning. That's good to know. Well, we are going to bring on our next dynamic duo, and you know them and love them. Human rights lawyer Craig Mokhiber and Palestinian analyst Mouin Rabbani. Welcome, guys. Oh, you're both muted. It's like you're so used to the Zionists silencing you that you're silencing yourself preemptively.
Okay, great to be with you, and hello, Craig.
Hi, Mouin. Hi, Katie. Nice to be with both of you.
Thank you. What a great combination to have you. I've had each of you on many times, but never together. So this is an exciting moment. So what everyone wants to know about is what the hell this Trump plan is for Gaza. We have some excerpts that we can look at. It's very funny. Actually, we can look at the kind of before and after edits of the plan. But as people probably know, Monday, Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, also known as war criminal Netanyahu. I guess it was a meeting of minds, a meeting of war criminal minds. Trump welcomed Netanyahu to the White House, and he announced a 20-point peace plan for the Gaza Strip. What do we need to know about this?
Mouin, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah.
Well, just by way of background, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly last week, Trump met with a number of Arab leaders and leaders of Muslim states, Turkey, Pakistan, and a few others. And I think they basically explained to him, this needs to stop. They're desperate to see the end of this, not because of the slaughter in Gaza, but more because its ramifications on them domestically. And they're seeing Israel behaving increasingly aggressively throughout the region. And they worked out a plan, a 21-point plan that, according to my understanding, largely reflects the January ceasefire agreement that was aborted by Israel with U.S. support in February, March. And the arrangement was, I think, that Trump was assigned the role of ensuring Israeli acceptance, and the Arab and Muslim leaders, for their part, said they would ensure that Hamas would accept it too. Netanyahu comes to the White House, supported by the neocons and the Israel firsters and the Christian evangelists in the U.S. administration. And the plan was substantively altered so that it is something Israel can support. It hasn't yet formally accepted, but I think it was also designed to ensure rejection by Hamas, and failing that, to ensure that Israel can resume its genocidal military assault at the time and place of its choosing. And if you heard the Trump-Netanyahu press conference yesterday, if you didn't know better, you wouldn't know which of these was representing Israel and which of the United States. I mean, Trump basically spoke like an Israeli government official. His words were indistinguishable from Netanyahu's. And now he's come out and said, basically, Hamas has a few days to accept this, and if not, they will burn in hell or something. As Craig, one of your former colleagues, stated today, I unfortunately can't recall who it was, it reminded him of the Nazi ultimatum to the Dutch when they invaded in 1940, and basically said, surrender or else. And when the Dutch refused to surrender, the Germans firebombed the port city of Rotterdam and burned it to the ground. But I think so. That's how we got here. As far as the agreement itself, it's very much in the mold of previous such proposals. Oslo, Israeli interests are treated as inalienable rights, and inalienable Palestinian rights are treated as interests that may at some point be discussed and negotiated. I don't think this agreement is really going to go very far, but that's for later in the discussion.
Okay. Anything that you want to add as in terms of background, Craig, or we can jump into the actual agreement. We can also jump into Netanyahu's amazing response to it, which was in Hebrew.
Yeah, of course, it's always a different story when he speaks in English to the West than when he speaks
Exactly.
in Hebrew at home. But I mean, just I think Mouin has laid it out very well. Some of the other characters that were involved in this, by the way, in addition to some complicit Arab governments, are some sleazy characters like Jared Kushner and Tony Blair, who have been feeding into the plan with Donald Trump. And so when you realize who is at the table, it is the co-perpetrators of the genocide, the US and Israel, Trump and Netanyahu themselves personally. Then these characters who have brought nothing but death and destruction and making a profit off of it, the Kushners and the Blairs of the world, and then in consultation with a few complicit governments. No Palestinians were involved in this plan. Obviously, this is just Sykes and Picot dividing up the spoils of colonialism. And the fact that Netanyahu was allowed at the last minute to make changes to the text that he had helped to prepare in the first place, and then within hours of having stood next to Trump and said that he agreed the plan to be speaking in Hebrew to dismiss elements of it, tells you all you really need to know. I won't get into the points of the plan itself, just to say that there is nothing in here about the genocide, about ending it, about accountability for the perpetration of genocide. There is nothing in here about dismantling the criminal regime that perpetrated the genocide, nothing about ending apartheid, no reparations for the victims, no removal of the Israeli forces, only phased withdrawal to the perimeter within of Gaza, no real notion of self-determination, just more colonial repression, Israeli impunity, all guaranteed by the U.S. government. And equally dangerously, it is another plan to normalize the Israeli regime, even as it perpetrates genocide and apartheid. And when Trump delivered this, I think also importantly, it came with a threat from him that if the resistance refuses these terms of surrender that he has dictated, then the U.S. will have Israel complete the genocide and destroy whatever is left of Gaza. That is not negotiating. It's gunboat diplomacy. It's armed robbery. It's 19th century colonialism in the 20th century. And it's the U.S. dictating the terms of surrender to the Palestinian people, saying, submit or die. One more piece of background on this. There have been a few tracks going on in the international level as this genocide has been waged. One of them was an accountability track. This was the track where you had Israel on trial for genocide in the International Court of Justice, where you had Israel's leaders indicted for crimes against humanity in the International Criminal Court, including Netanyahu. We have had findings of apartheid and genocide by every major international human rights organization, Israeli human rights organization, Palestinian human rights organizations, UN human rights mechanisms as well. And that track was looking toward this deadline of the 18th of September, which is just past, the point at which the UN General Assembly said further measures would be adopted to hold Israel accountable and to provide some protection for the Palestinian people. Just as that deadline passed, you get the French-Saudi proposal, which is another form of a proxy occupation, and you get this Trump Riviera extension of the proposal, the 21, now the 20 points, in order to stop the accountability track that was building in the international community.
Could I just add to that? It's quite clear, we're at a fork in the road. On the one hand, you have this Trump proposal, which, as Craig pointed out, is not the result of negotiations. It was basically formulated by the United States, amended to indulge Israel, and then presented as to the Palestinians as something that would be shoved down their throats by the Arab and Muslim leaders. But this is basically, a rehash of Oslo, of permanent subordination of the Palestinians to Israeli occupation. It's a recipe for disaster. I mean, you can't have supported Oslo for 7 years and then reacted with shock and horror when the Second Intifada broke out. And similarly, a crisis is inbuilt into this initiative, assuming that it actually gets implemented. But that's the one track. The other track is precisely what Craig was discussing, the sea change in global and particularly Western public opinion, the growing belief that Israel needs to be held to the same standard as every other state and cannot do whatever it pleases, whenever, however, wherever, with total impunity. And you're beginning to see governments even take or contemplate meaningful measures. And the initiative was very much designed to abort the momentum that was heading in that way. And you already today had, for example, the Italian Prime Minister, Meloni, calling for the Samud flotilla heading towards Gaza to be called off because there's a peace process and we don't want to endanger it and so on. It reminded me very much of the Oslo years, where every time Israel would build a new settlement or perpetrate another atrocity or shoot a few kids through the head, and Palestinians were demanding that the sponsors of this process address reality on the ground, they were always told, don't rock the boat because you'll undermine the peace process that, so-called, that is supposed to achieve your objectives. And of course, that never happened. Right. So sorry, just to conclude, I think the real priority for the Palestinians now is to ensure that that momentum towards a shift in paradigm, towards replacing impunity with accountability and so on, is strengthened and overtakes this attempt to kind of, revive diplomatic processes of the past.
And by the way, speaking of the Samud flotilla, we did an extra stream, not live because it was with people on the flotilla, but we spoke to 2 veterans. So I just want to let people know that's uploaded onto this channel, 2 really moving veterans, and it was quite inspiring to talk to them. So everyone can check that out. So should we watch some? I mean, trigger warning to everyone. We're going to watch some of Netanyahu speaking in Hebrew, but should we watch some of Trump speaking at his press conference? Let's watch a little bit.
If we must.
Yeah,
Mouin put his glasses on. I'm going to put my blindfold on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you probably need earplugs. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at some of this.
If accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. Working with the new transitional authority in Gaza, all parties will agree on a timeline for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. They'll be withdrawing in phases. No more shooting, hopefully, as progress is made toward achieving these goals. Arab and Muslim nations need to be allowed the chance to fulfill these commitments of dealing with Hamas. I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
That's great. So much for the America First, guys. Okay, all you Trump fans out there who think he's America First, he just told Bibi that he has our full backing to do whatever he has to do. So yeah, does that sound like someone who's has U.S. interests at heart?
Depends how you define U.S. interests.
True. Yeah. Well, if genocide is a U.S. interest.
Well, some would argue it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Historically speaking, it is, right? Yeah.
Understands that the ultimate result must be the elimination of any danger posed in the region, and that danger is caused by Hamas. My plan.
He doesn't believe that. I mean, that's what's funny is that Trump, we've heard him say stuff before like this, like when Biden, he was debating Biden and Biden said, the only ones who want the war are Hamas. Israel wants to stop fighting. And he was like, that's not true. Israel wants to keep fighting and they should finish the job. He said in the past, before he was president, he said something about how, Israel is the one that doesn't want peace. But whatever, that doesn't matter. Obviously, has no consistency. But anything you want to say to that, or should we shift to the other war criminal in power, Netanyahu's Hebrew language response?
Well, just you said something there that I think is very important and insane, which is, he tried to say that it was the Palestinian resistance that was the source of all of the violence and suffering in the Middle East, when clearly it has been the Israeli regime that has been perpetrating genocide and occupation and apartheid, and has been occupying Lebanon and occupying Syria and having transnational terror attacks with booby-trap pagers in Lebanon and assassinating people across Western Asia, and acts of aggression against, Syria and Lebanon and Iraq and Iran and Yemen and, boats in the Mediterranean and so on. So when you read this, one of the striking things is that it treats the Palestinians as if they are the genocidal regime, the apartheid regime, and Israel as somehow the victim. It's reflected not just in his comments, but in the 21 points that have remained. So, for example, it talks about de-radicalizing the victims of genocide, not de-radicalizing the Israeli perpetrators, right? In here, and lots of other things in the agreement that essentially show that what they're going to do is they're going to control the Palestinians as they colonize them, not control the perpetrator Israeli apartheid regime that's carrying out the genocide. So it's the opposite of a just resolution. It is a continuation and an exacerbation of the injustices that the U.S. and Israel have partnered in now for decades.
Right.
If I could just make a point about de-radicalization, because I think it's an important one. It's a typical colonial talking point, which is to say that Palestinians, like Kenyans, South Africans, Cambodians, whatever, before them, not only do they not have any legitimate grievances, but they're not even aware of the grievances they should have. And therefore, it's always an outside party, communist or nationalist or Islamist agitator or whatnot, that implants these ideas into their heads because they were just happily out in the sun, farming fruit and vegetables, completely content with their lives and the great benefits that were being bought by the colonial power. But then you have these diabolical outside agitators that are putting these ideas into their head. So in this case, they need to be de-radicalized. Now, do you really believe that if the Palestinian curriculum starts teaching that actually the Holy Trinity is Netanyahu, Ben-Gurion, and Herzl, that Palestinians are going to start behaving any differently? I mean, they're radicalized to the extent that that's the appropriate term by Israel, by the reality they live every day. But the other important point about de-radicalization, is that it is Israel that will be the arbiter of when this process has been successfully completed, which is to say, never. And as long as that still needs to continue because of this, that, or the other, that gives Israel the power to, for example, say, there will be no connection between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The role assigned to Palestinians to take a greater role in governance will not be fulfilled, and so on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think it's funny. I mean, totally agree with what both of you just said, but I do think it's funny because I really think you could see when Trump was saying, like, we don't want to have a danger to this region, and that danger, as we know, is Hamas. Like, I feel like in his face, you actually see him being like, I don't believe this for a second. Like, he knows that Israel is.
Well, has he ever said anything that, apart from nominating himself for the Nobel Peace Prize, I don't think he takes anything he says seriously.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No. Well, we should, because we promise it to people, and I don't want to deprive people of some really great content. We should take a look at what Netanyahu said in Hebrew. Prime Minister, how was your visit? It was an excellent visit, the beginning at the UN as well as the ending in Washington. This is my fourth visit to Washington since President Trump took office. This is a historic visit. Instead of Hamas isolating us, we turned the tables and isolated Hamas. Now the entire world, including the Arab and Muslim world, is pressuring Hamas to accept the terms we set together with President Trump, to release all our hostages, both living and deceased, while the IDF remains in most of the Strip. Who would have believed this? After all, people constantly say you must accept Hamas's terms, get everyone out, the IDF should withdraw, Hamas can recover, and it can also rehabilitate the Strip. No way, that's not happening. On the contrary, and President Trump added that if Hamas refuses, he will give Israel full backing to complete the military operation and eliminate them. That's why I think from every perspective, it was an excellent visit. Prime Minister, there's a question being asked. Do you agree to a Palestinian state? Absolutely not. It's also not written in the agreement, but there is one thing we did say, that we would strongly oppose a Palestinian state. President Trump also said it. He said he understands it. He also said at the UN that it would be a huge reward for terrorism and a danger to the state of Israel. And of course, we won't agree to it. There you go. So anyone who had their hopes up that that Trump was going to finally lay down the law on this genocide, I think probably has had those hopes dashed.
No, I think that's right, and I think, you know, if you read the rest of his 21 points, you see that there's plenty in there.
Sorry, Craig, they're down to 20.
Yes, they're 20 now. They've subtracted a point at the last minute. If you read those points, you'll see that there's a big chunk in there that they used as kind of a bone to wag in front of Donald Trump's face, because it comes right out of his Gaza Riviera plan, where he was going to get his hands on some of the financial interests that exist in coastal territories on the Mediterranean, and he's going to be in charge of the body that is responsible for the development of Gaza. He will be receiving monies, which, by the way, aren't going to be the reparations owed by the Israeli regime for the damage that it did, but money from the Gulf, money from Europe, and so on, which will go into a mechanism managed by Donald Trump, with Tony Blair on one side and Jared Kushner on the other. No worry about corruption or self-serving economic interest there, or no doubts that the interest of the Palestinian people in those development projects will be supported. I mean, you know, in their comments, in the agreement itself, all you see is blatant 19th century colonialism being espoused by all of them in this process. I don't see how this plan has a chance in hell of being accepted by the Palestinian people. The Palestinian Authority is another matter, but right. The Palestinian people, the Palestinian resistance, and others on these terms.
Yeah. Well, we were going to show some of the before and after of the document. I wonder if Roger wants to watch them with us. Roger, do you want to come in and see some of the track changes that that Trump made, that Netanyahu made to the Trump peace plan? Yes. I'm going to just throw you.
How would anybody not want to listen to the words of wisdom that come out of his whatever that orifice is in the front of his face, under his nose?
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, Roger Waters.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I was going to bring you on for your own segment, but I thought you are a very smart person and very well researched. You really do your research. And if you want more of that, then Mouin and Craig are great partners in crime. So I thought you would enjoy actually looking at a little bit of the before and after. So everyone watching probably knows, well, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame, but also of activist fame, also of truth teller fame. Outspoken, says things that are not popular, says things that get him smeared and censored, which is great. And as someone named Tony Greenstein said, if you haven't been called an anti-Semite, you're not doing enough for Palestine. So I would say mazel tov to you, Roger. And I get called that too. So, you know, welcome to the club. So let's
Happy to be in it.
Thank you. Let's take a look at some of these track changes in the document. And people probably know track changes is when you make edits. So, Brad, I actually gave you some screenshots that'll make it easier for us to. And if you don't have them, I can drag them in. Do you have them or?
Yeah, I have them. If you want to just do those.
Oh yes, yeah. Let's do those. Yeah. So we'll start with the what do I have? The Blair screenshot. Let's start with that. Okay, so here, as you can see what it was and what it's changed to. So originally it said Gaza will be governed under the temporary, that's fine, no one cares about an article. Okay. let me skip to the important part. Gaza will be governed under the temporary transitional governance of a technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee responsible for delivering the day-to-day running of public services and municipalities for the people in Gaza. This committee will be made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts with oversight and supervision by a new international transitional body, the Board of Peace. Now, originally it said, which the United States will establish in consultation with our Arab and European partners. Now it says, which the United States will, which will be headed and chaired by President Donald J. Trump, with other members and heads of state to be announced, including former Prime Minister Tony Blair. So there we have it. So the, Arab and European partners are replaced by Tony Blair and Donald Trump. Okay, what's next? Let's look at the next one.
Can I just make a point on that? Because it calls for Palestinian reforms, including those included in the initiative unveiled by Trump during his first term, From Peace to Prosperity. And what some people have noted about this, and is easily missed, is that one of the so-called reforms required of the Palestinians is to withdraw from any legal proceedings against Israel, whether at the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, or any national courts. In other words, the Palestinians have to prove they're ready for governance by giving Israel total impunity.
Right. Yes. Roger, do you have your hand up, or you?
I have my hand up, Casey.
Great.
Why the F are we giving this the time of day? This is arrant, absolute nonsense. And we all know it in this room. And anybody with an IQ above room temperature knows it. And this absolute crap about giving Tony Blair some kind of a position on Trump's board as he develops Mara Gaza. Please don't. Why are you wasting my time on your show looking at this absolute crap? This is nothing to do with a proposal for any kind of a peace. This is, as Craig pointed out a minute ago, this is pure 19th century European colonialism. This is just stealing Palestine 1948 and giving it to Jared Kushner and Tony Blair and Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to whatever they want, to do whatever they want with. The only thing they have to do is kill everyone who lives there or get rid of them. So this piece of paper is rubbish, and we shouldn't be wasting our time on a proper television show, yours, even giving it a glance. We should be talking about uniting for peace, which may happen. Maybe we're going to bring that up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we will.
Bend, but
no, it's okay. Well, I don't regret showing it, because what else? I mean, it provoked that response from you, which, angry as it was, you dropped a lot of gems there. So maybe I should anger, just.
Yeah, trust me.
Angry young man.
Yeah.
Wow. Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Oh, Donald Trump. Oh my goodness me. Hang on a minute. Do they not realize, does the moron Donald Trump not realize that the whole world, I've made the dog bark now.
Yeah, I know. She's good taste. She's upset.
Oh, bless her. I know, but well, she's a bit undershot.
I've muted.
All right. Oh, yes. Okay. So where was I? I've forgotten where I was. But this is, we, the people of the world, all 8 billion of us, have all decided, the vast majority of us, maybe not 5 years ago or 3 years ago or even 2 years ago, but now we have, that there needs to be a proper, I'm not going to talk about 1 or 2 states, but there need to be equal human rights for every single human being that lives between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea, irrespective of their religion or their nationality or the color of their skin or anything else. And that is what we, the people of the world, believe. Ask the Prime Minister of Malaysia or the Prime Minister of Indonesia, or ask the President of Colombia, who I was with in New York, with Craig earlier in the week or last week. Ask us.
All right.
We know what to do with it. We have to have equal human rights. I'm not going to repeat it. If somebody would like me to write it out on a piece of paper and slip it under everyone's door, all the morons who are taking Trump's suggestions seriously, well, I can't. I haven't got time. I'm already tired, by the way. But you show a complete lack of any understanding of how life could be if we were all observant of international law. I know Donald Trump doesn't believe in this international law any more than Bibi Netanyahu does, but they are criminally insane people. I do, Katie does, Craig does, Mouin does.
Yeah.
We believe in international law. I'll stop talking.
And so does your dog, Sweet Georgia Brown, because that's why she was barking.
That wasn't my dog barking. That was
mine.
yours,
But... Mouin? Oh, okay. So does your dog, Mouin.
Yeah,
and Bucky's not here.
I want to see your dogs, obviously.
Yeah.
But...
This is a dog show. We always show the
It
dog.
is.
So if your dog is around, please do show him or her. But Bucky's not here. He's being babysat. Thank you, Lisette. But I just want to show one more thing because one more thing that's, I think, important. Again, no, we're not looking at this, Roger, because we value the editorial process engaged in by Netanyahu and Trump. And we're not looking at it because we think what Trump is saying is sincere. But I think it's useful. It's kind of a, we can see the direction that Israel's going to go in because we're looking at edited documents that were.
I hope you're bringing up the 21st item, because that was Trump had said, oh, by the way, we're not going to let the Israelis take over the West Bank.
Well, we do
which
have
they've
that one.
already done, by the way, but we're not going to.
There's not a single reference to the West Bank in the entire document.
There was. It was the 21st thing that was in there, and it was removed by Netanyahu. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. Well, what we do have is, let's see. Let's take a look at the Qatar clip, Brad, paragraph, I mean. So this is a really interesting one. It said originally, Israel agrees to no further attacks on Qatar, and the United States and the international community acknowledges the important role Qatar has played as a mediator in this conflict and to host Hamas at the previous request of the United States and in coordination with Israel. A process will be established to change. Okay, that's it. So pause there. That entire thing was struck out.
So they will probably bomb Qatar again.
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, how and who? I mean, frankly, with all due respect to the Qatari royal family, and that's about the only people who live in Qatar, apart from all the people who die building soccer stadiums for foreigners to come and watch the World Cup. But and also people to service the Americans in the biggest, airbase. Thank you very much. It's the biggest airbase anywhere outside the United States of America, probably. But well, again, this has nothing to do with real life. None of it. It's theater. It's really bad theater. But that's the whole administration of Donald Trump is really, really bad theater. That's probably why it's so popular among the MAGA crowd, because they like really bad things. But that's what it is. There's nothing real about any of this. And never mind this and all this stuff you've got. I'm sorry to go on, but what about Hegseth in the Pentagon this morning before Trump going, oh, not only are we going to not just make all the wars that we're fighting already much, much bigger. I believe Trump came after him. I didn't see Trump's speech and said, oh, by the way, we're going to start war in America. We're going to have wars in all the cities of America. We're going to send the National Guard.
Oh, right,
all the immigrants and all the people who disagree with that Roger Waters. What? You can sell this to the great unwashed in the MAGA movement.
Apparently.
I mean, it's stunning. The only reason I'm laughing is because I know this has to explode in their faces at some point. This cannot be accepted by them, particularly the people of America. I live in America. They're not this dumb. They really aren't. They just seem to be because they've been conned by all this sleight of hand nonsense that Trump's gone on about. He promised the working people that he was going to make their life. All Trump is doing is stealing the poor people's or working people's money and giving it to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and himself.
Yeah, well, it also speaks to the failures of the Democrats, right? Because, I mean, they can't call him out for what he is because they themselves, and I'm not equating the two parties. I'm not. But they are not a viable opposition.
They'd rather lose and do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Well, Mouin and Craig, you've been very generous with your time, and I want to give you the last words of this segment, and then I'm going to chat more with Roger. But is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think Roger summed it all up very nicely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roger can follow up on this, but there is that other track that is being drowned out by this ridiculous French-Saudi thing and the ridiculous Trump thing. And that other track is the drumbeat that already started over the course of the past 2 years to break through the wall of Israeli impunity, to hold Israel accountable, to adopt concrete measures to make sure it's held accountable and to provide real protection for the Palestinian people. There's a process underway to try to pursue that. It is uphill and they're shooting at us from above. But that's what we need to focus all of our energy on. And Roger is in the know, and I'm sure he can talk about those things with you.
Yeah, perfect. And we are going to talk about that next.
All right. Thank you.
Bravo. Good
Thank
to see
you.
you, Craig. Good to see you, Mouin.
Bye.
Very good.
Bye, guys. All right. Well, Roger, I am very excited to have you back on the show. And I want to ask you mostly about, instead of, you know, the what did you call it, garbage nonsense that is coming out of the mouths of Trump and Netanyahu, it's a nice time for us to talk about things that can be done that are actually good for the world. And you've been very involved in some of these things. So you actually appeared at the UN at a protest for Palestine with none other than the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. And before we get into what you and he were talking about, I want to show a clip of Gustavo Petro within the UN. Then we're going to watch a clip that features you in the background, but you're playing a very important role with moral support. Okay, let's take a look at the Petro speech, and I will read it's not translated, so I'll read it. This is why I call on the nations of the world and on all peoples of humanity to unite armies and weapons. Palestine must be liberated. I call on the armies of Asia and the Slavic peoples who defeated Hitler. I call on the Bolivarian armies of Latin America, of Garibaldi, who had an army in Italy. On Martí of Artigas of Santa Cruz. Words are no longer enough. It is the hour of Bolivar's sword, freedom or death. They will not only bomb Gaza, not only the Caribbean, but humanity itself, which cries out for freedom. Because Washington and NATO are killing democracy and reviving tyranny and totalitarianism worldwide. We must raise Bolivar's red and black flag of freedom or death, without forgetting the white flag of peace. Peace as hope, so there may be life on earth and in the heart of humanity. The United States no longer teaches democracy. It kills its migrants in its greed. The United States teaches tyranny. The UN must change by stopping the genocide in Gaza. It must act with the strength of an army for the salvation of the world. Okay. So you then appeared outside of the UN at a protest with Gustavo Petro, and he laid out a very interesting plan. Is there anything you want to say before we play that video?
Not really. You know, if you want to play that speech as well, do. I mean, I've heard it, obviously, but anybody who hasn't. And it was translated in the square that we were in
real time
by his kind of mate, who's called Victor something or other, but who's a good chap as well. By all means, play it.
Great. So let's play this. And it's cool because it's translated by in real time. And you're going to see someone very important in the background who literally has his back.
Entonces aportarán hombres y mujeres entrenados y armados para configurar ese gran ejército.
And the reason I want to play it also is because that way people who speak Spanish, it's more poetic in Spanish, but you'll also hear it in English. Okay.
The people and the nation should be involved to create this great army.
Tiene que ser más grande que el de los Estados Unidos. Por eso, desde aquí, desde Nueva York, le pido a todos los soldados del ejército de los Estados Unidos no apuntar contra la humanidad sus fusiles.
Then I ask from New York, I ask to all the soldiers of the USA Army, don't put your hands against the people, not against the humanity.
Desobedezcan la orden de Trump. Obedezcan la orden de la humanidad.
Disobey the Trump's order. Obey the order of humanity.
Yo mismo me arrodillé como cristiano ante las tumbas de miles de soldados norteamericanos que murieron en los campos de Europa luchando contra Hitler.
Myself, I was praying before the graveyards of the USA soldiers killing during the Second World War fighting against the fascism.
Esos abuelos de los hoy mariners y soldados del ejército de Estados Unidos deben dar ejemplo y comprenderlos. Ellos en una gran alianza con pueblos de todo el mundo, con resistencias, dieron y escribieron una página de heroísmo.
These people that was the granddaughter and grandson of the people that was killing the Second World War writing a great page of the heroism. That's why they have to be, let's use my own words, in the correct side of the history.
Y derrotaron a Hitler y el gran peligro que se blandía contra la humanidad.
And they defeat Hitler and all the risk of the against humanity leading by the fascism.
Hoy es lo mismo. Hay que recordar el ejemplo de los abuelos que lucharon y murieron por la causa de la libertad. Hoy también la humanidad tiene que alzarse por la sagrada causa de la libertad.
Today is the same, and the grandson and granddaughter has to fight to defend the freedom. This is the cause of the freedom should be the leading agenda of the soldiers.
Y como sucedió en la Primera Guerra Mundial, quiero que los jóvenes, hijos de trabajadores y granjeros, tanto de Israel como de los Estados Unidos, apunten sus fusiles no hacia la humanidad, sino hacia los tiranos y hacia los fascistas.
And then he says he wants the Israelis and Americans to point their guns not at the wait, let me play the last part again.
Las naciones del mundo entonces y Estados Unidos apunten sus fusiles no hacia la humanidad.
Don't point your weapons at humanity, but rather
sino hacia los tiranos y hacia los fascistas.
But rather point them at the tyrants and fascists. And that's a reference, I think, to Lenin. I think we can all agree. It was a good call. Okay, so Roger, how did this unfold? You're out there in front of the UN. It's during the United Nations General Assembly, and you're there and you're with the president of Colombia. What happens?
Well, I'll tell you how it unfolded. When I was on tour in South America in 2023, December, I did a gig in Bogota. And I called him up, or I called up the presidency, and I said, I'd like to see Gustavo Petro, if I could get an appointment. And they went, yeah, all right. He's a bit of a fan, of your work and blah, blah, blah. So I went. The reason that I went was the same reason that I'd been before in Brasilia to see Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil. And I went because I wanted to encourage them individually to evoke the Genocide Convention. Then, this was like 1 month after October the 7th, to try to force the Israelis and the Americans to stop the genocide that they'd already started in Gaza by evoking this genocide convention. Because under international law, it's the worst crime you can commit is genocide. And here is the United States and Israel, its ally, committing genocide in front of our very eyes, day after day, already then. So actually, Gustavo was very honest with me. He sort of smiled a bit and he said, I know I'm the president of Colombia, but weirdly enough, I don't have control over the foreign ministry. The ruling class still do. Right. This is how politics is in some parts of the world, you know. So he said, I can't actually do that now, but we can do I couldn't agree with you more. That's exactly what I would do if I could. And let's hold this Palestinian flag up. And if you had that photo here, Katie, you can show it now, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. I had the same conversation with Lula, who was also extremely supportive. Well, what a lovely surprise it was last week to hear that he was in town and that he was not evoking it, because the South Africans did that when they took it to the ICJ. Okay, and so it had been in the General Assembly of the United Nations since then. And in fact, a year ago, there we are. That's us in 2023.
In Colombia, right?
In Colombia, yeah, in the presidential palace in Bogota. So then there we are.
Did you have that in your back pocket, or did he have it? The flag?
No, he had the flag. He had a flag there. I'm pretty sure. You know, I could be lying.
But it wasn't your back pocket. It's too big.
No, it wasn't in my. I'd never get that in my back pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
I wear kind of tight jeans.
It's true, you do. You wear skinny jeans.
Exactly.
Someone else maybe could.
Look, how the hell am I supposed to remember this story if you keep bringing in irrelevant? That's all right. Anyway, so there is this thing. I'm not sure if it's 477 or 3. It might be 377A, which is a resolution that can be brought in an emergency session of the General Assembly if one needs, because of some great evil being done somewhere in the world, if that great evil is being allowed to happen by one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council exercising their veto, the General Assembly can circumvent that veto. Well, the genocide in Gaza and in Palestine in general is being carried on because the USA constantly and consistently vetoes any move by the Security Council to stop the genocide. There was one just last week and they vetoed it. It was a 14-1 vote. 14 of the members of the Security Council voted for an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of the Israeli army from, and all of that, vetoed by the United States. So President Petro is now calling, well, he hasn't actually done it yet, but he has announced his intention to write a resolution to present to the General Assembly. And Craig Mokhiber and I, among others, are waiting with bated breath to get that document so we can continue to help him to bring it before an emergency session of the General Assembly. Now, what the General Assembly would vote to do remains to be seen. You know, I'm not suggesting that we all shoulder arms and march into Israel and whatever it was he said, you know, liberty or death. It sounds nice and it's rhetorically work. No, but what we do want is we want to send in a protection force to stop the genocide and to protect the Palestinian people from further harm. And that is the extent of it. But this would be a huge, huge victory for the people of the world who support the ICJ decision to do exactly that, which was nearly 2 years ago now. So we're all excited about it, and we can't wait to get on with it. We might just need to jiggle Gustavo Petro a little bit. I know they're working as fast and as hard as they can on it, but that will be happening soon. Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, their plans are a complete joke, just really, really bad theater, and have no relationship to real life, and certainly nothing to do with human rights or the law or any of the rest of it. And I could go on, but I'm rambling. So,
well, I want to point out that I do give Gustavo Petro, the president, the president of Colombia, a lot of credit for saying what he said. And also a sign that you're saying something powerful is that Trump's State Department revoked his visa.
That day. That
night. Day. Right.
Yeah. Immediately. Yeah, they did. Shows how petulant and petty they are. And also how scared they are. Exactly. They are terrified. Trump is a terrified little boy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell it. You can see it. It oozes out of him in everything he says, everything he does. He's shitting himself.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, Señor Presidente.
Yes, thank you.
Póngase las pilas.
I couldn't have said that better.
Put in the batteries. It's like, hurry up. And I say that with great respect. And if you're watching, Señor Presidente, my Spanish teacher, who is a good friend of mine, is named Sol Beatriz Gaitan and is the niece of Jorge Gaitan Elisier. So that's the person I learned Spanish from. And he was killed. For people who don't know, he was killed. He was running for president. He was killed, and that kicked off the violent period in Colombia, and it was called El Bogotazo. Speaking of Bogota, so that's like in Spanish, it's kind of it's like the big Bogota thing is how you translate it. Anyway, so but coming full circle, are you heartened by what you're seeing right now? Because you, Roger, are someone who I know very much intellectually, but also emotionally feels what's happening in Palestine. I've spoken to you about this a lot, and I know how much it weighs on you. It weighs on anyone with a conscience. Are you feeling empowered or encouraged by what you're seeing now? I mean, we had people walking out on Netanyahu, which is great. Of course, it doesn't make a big difference right now on the lives of Palestinians, but as we have to remember, no policy changes without a public opinion shift. So how are you seeing this right now?
Well, the opinion has shifted hugely. And there's no going back. I don't think there's any go. The only good thing that's happened because of the abominable behavior, both of the United States and most of the European countries, and the Israeli government, is that the mask is now off. They're not hiding behind any pretense that any of this has to do with anything but greed. That's all this is about. It's a settler colonial thing. So it's just, we want your land, we're going to kill you. Trump actually said that to them a couple of months ago. He said, you can either leave foreign territory or voluntarily, or we'll kill you. He said that to them. I mean, it's stunning. It's stunning the things that they've absolutely admitted to. So, and the people of the world have seen this, and they're deeply against it. The pendulum has swung now. So Netanyahu and Trump are a tiny minority. The whole of the global South and almost everyone in Europe and almost everyone in the United States now, including a huge majority of young Republicans, now says, no, we're not buying your story anymore. This is absolutely against what we want to do. We do want to live with the moral compass. We do believe in human rights. We do believe in what was agreed on the 10th of December, 1948 in Paris with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I know that some of you agreed to that and signed it, and you've all we believe all men are created equal and that all human beings have certain inalienable. No, you don't. I know it's written in your Declaration of Independence, but the founding fathers never believed any of that for a single second. They were all slave owners, for goodness sake. So, and they never did. It's an absolute pretense. It's a piece of theater to control you all. And they do control you all. I'm sorry to say it, Casey, but you are well controlled. That is why Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are worth thousands of billions of dollars. Is it thousands? No, not quite. 1,000 billion is a trillion, isn't it? Now, none of them are quite trillionaires, but hundreds of billions of dollars. And a lot of you are sleeping in tents on the streets. And you constant thinking, how on earth can I make this last to the end of the month? You're getting poorer and poorer, and they're getting richer and richer. I was interested. I was watching you and your guests earlier talking about housing and things, and I was fascinated by the fact not once did any of you mention the word socialism. That's what you need, obviously, but it's a dirty word in America. You can't say socialist.
I prefer communist. You're right. I do sometimes omit socialism in favor of communist. Yeah,
communist is fine too. Yeah. But any kind of a system that takes care of people in need is a much better system than this system that only takes care of Jeff Bezos and his bride in a $10 million frock in Venice. So anything is better than that. And you get sold the idea that, well, you could be Jeff Bezos. No, you couldn't. This is a rigged game.
I hope not. I hope I couldn't be.
Oh, well, that's lovely. I'm glad to hear you say that.
I mean, I think most people I keep saying with the conscience tonight, it's a big theme, but
conscience is good.
It is good. I'm pro-conscience. This is a pro-conscience show.
Me too.
Yeah. That's why we get along, Roger. We have that in common. Yeah.
That and the undershot dog.
Oh yeah, we both have dogs with underbites. In fact, Brad, can you prepare that those 2 shots that we got for some point in the show? Okay, because it actually shows a very important evolution with Bucky. I wanted to ask you about the role of music in revolution, in protest, in raising awareness. We have had some people actually speak out on Israel in a way that we haven't seen before, right? So you have actually, wait, hold on, scratch that, because before we go to that, I want to ask about something else. Then we'll get to the musicians. Okay, so scratch that or pause it. So Trump, speaking of Trump, right? So you just went over some of the terrible things that Trump has done, and we just talked about how his State Department has revoked Petro's visa. We're seeing a major crackdown on Antifa. They are officially designated a domestic terrorist organization, even though they're not actually a thing. But to be fair to you, because you come from over the pond, the UK's liberal, in quotes, the UK's liberal government is not much better, and they've prescribed Palestine Action as a domestic terror group. So can you talk about this prescription and the protest movement that has risen up against it, and what the labor movement looks like right now? Because in many ways, the labor movement is nothing more than the British Democratic Party, right?
Kind of, yeah, if that's the way you want to look at it. Certainly, Starmer's Labour Party has nothing to do with representing the working class, which is how the Labour Party started. And back in the days of Michael Foot or Wedgwood Ben, or before that, an Arian Bevan, and, you know, the post-war Labour government, which was in power when I was a tiny child, and they were the ones who introduced the National Health Service, and so all that's gone. That all went with Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair and with us. And they sold the National Health Service to American corporations, and so it's gone totally downhill, because it's no longer about being something to help people who are sick. There was a wonderful documentary that my friend John Pilger made about the
great
destruction
John Pilger, so amazing.
Did you see that documentary?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and he was so wonderful, and I'm sad he's no longer around. I got to interview him once, and I wish I had done it like 3,000 more times, because he was a
lovely fella.
He really was. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? Why were we talking about?
Oh, about the Palestine Action being prescribed.
Yeah. But you know what was amazing was the day they did it, they actually did it on the evening of Friday, July the 4th this year. And on July the 5th, you can't see it, but I'm going to get it, because why not? Hang on.
And July the 4th, of course, in your area does not have the symbolism and significance it does here. But
yeah, it's not. No, it has nothing to do with it. But this is what I made on July the 5th.
Roger Waters support Palestine Action. Oh, nice.
See, that was it. And on July the 5th, I wrote that. And sorry, I'm going to get my chair back, because. And I did that. I held it up, and I made a little podcast about it, just to show that, because I already knew that to write "I support Palestine Action" made me liable to 14 years in prison to express that opinion.
Right.
I don't have to make a bomb or hurt anybody, or even encourage anyone. Palestine Action have never made a bomb.
No.
Palestine Action have never hurt anybody. What they do is they spray paint on Elbit Systems, which is an Israeli warmongering weapons manufacturing company, and they wanted them out of the UK, and they've actually achieved that end pretty well by now. But it's extremely inconvenient to Keir Starmer, who supports the genocide and who supports Israel and who's totally controlled by the Israeli lobby.
Right.
Because after all, he's only in power because the Israeli lobby got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, who actually was a socialist and actually cared about working people in England.
Yeah, and Palestinians. And Palestinians, yeah.
Of course.
And by the way, you know, people love to smear him as anti-Semite, and he is no anti-Semite. And in fact, his mother, he has a very moving story about how his mother fought back. What is it, Cable Street? Is that where it was? Cable Street?
It was Cable Street,
fascist
the East
march
End of London,
yeah. Where the working class basically defended Jews and fought back against fascists, and his mother was there, and he gets very emotional when he talks about that.
Yeah, against armed fascists.
Yes, right, armed fascists, not just
battles in the streets. Yeah, and Cable Street was the most famous of those battles back in 1938.
Right.
So yeah, good for Jeremy Corbyn, who's now he's now a member of Parliament again because he stood as an independent. I went back for the general election to help Andrew Weinstein, who stood as an independent against Starmer, in Holborn and St Pancras, which is a North London constituency. But that's another story.
And the great Andrew Feinstein, I should say, is the son of a Holocaust survivor. He has lectured on the Holocaust. He introduced a Holocaust resolution into the South African Parliament when he was an MP.
He did.
He was an MP under Nelson Mandela.
He was.
And he is a very outspoken defender of Palestinian rights and believes in never again for anyone, which is the never again that any Jew with a conscience believes in. And any Jew who believes in never again for Jews only is basically just a fascist who happened to be born Jewish.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's more tragic actually for Jews that this genocide and the fact that the state of Israel exists than it is obviously for anyone else in the world. How tragic that your religion should be stolen from you and used by a bunch of fascist thugs who are only interested in stealing land, who are genocidal. It's tragic.
Yeah, it really is. And it does give me hope seeing, I mean, I'm not religious, right? But I'm very moved by the people who, I mean, I am very moved when I see people wearing kippas that have like the watermelon on them. Because I think it's really important. Again, I'm not religious, but I think it's really important for people to see that Jews who are religious, Jews who are secular, but I guess more surprisingly, Jews who are religious, are speaking out and saying that Israel does not represent us. So,
you know what, Corbyn did one thing of which I've disapproved horribly, which was
so. Guys, I'm interrupting our normal programming to say that if you've been watching live, you're so in luck because you've seen this whole thing. But if you're watching later and you want to see the rest of this chat with Roger Waters, where we talk about U2, we talk about terrible musician sellouts. We talk about the comedians who are performing in Riyadh. We read a great statement from the great comedian David Cross. What else do? We do a lot of great stuff. Brad, you want to come on and tell them what else we see? What do you get in this Patreon?
Well,
and we won't do a discursive, whatever thing.
What do we get in this Patreon? Well, I mean, I would have to show that your discussion about different celebrities being disappointing in terms of not being on the right side of history, that is including but not limited to U2 and The Hedge.
Yeah, very good. You get you also get some great Bucky footage.
Excellent Bucky footage.
So we've said enough, and we're gonna keep it tight because there's a Jewish goodbye and there's an Irish goodbye, and an Irish goodbye is when you leave without saying goodbye, and a Jewish goodbye is when you say goodbye without leaving. That's my tendency and orientation and my heritage. I don't want to be anti-Semitic. I embrace the Jewish goodbye, but for the sake of efficiency, I'm going to do an Irish. No, I'm not going to do an Irish goodbye. I'm going to do a Scandinavian goodbye? Whatever. I'm just going to do a goodbye. Please do if you haven't already, join the Patreon, become Patreon supporters at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. You will not regret it. It is many, many, many minutes. How many minutes do we have of Patreon only stuff? We have what? Andrew, how much Patreon only do we have?
It is going to be quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be very significant. Yeah. So patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And we will see you next week. And also be on the lookout for a little thing that I made you, like a little bonus. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you to our guests. Thank you, Nate. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bye, everyone.
Okay, calm down.